The course content will now focus on the electrical operation of the fridge unit. Before attempting to plug in the electrical cable into the vehicle, an inspection needs to be done, basically a visual inspection of the actual plug and its lead, and also the switching mechanism of the unit. In most cases, the power supply to these units are fed by three-phase electrical supply, which runs between 380 volts to 400 volts. Therefore, it is important that no defective equipment are used and that the person operating the cable, the plug, etc. has ensured that the power supply is off, switched off at all times before handling this equipment. This is the number one safety rule that needs to be kept in mind at all times when handling these cables and plugs, either connecting to a vehicle or disconnecting from a vehicle. Once the plug has been secured onto the vehicle socket, move back to the power point and switch on the electrical supply. You are now ready to access the vehicle cab, where the control panel is mounted on the dashboard to manipulate the fridge unit. Once the unit has been switched on, the display will light up and go through a startup mode. After the startup mode, it will start displaying relevant information with regard to the actual state of the unit. It will normally display the last settings of temperature on the unit. At this point, the selection can be made to run the unit on its diesel motor or electrical motor. The icon for the electrical motor looks like a 2-point plug and needs to be selected on the display control panel. Once the electrical motor has been selected, the fridge will recognize the selection and it will take a few seconds to start up the electrical motor. You will notice that the electrical motor will run at a lower noise level than the diesel engine which operates the motor. So there's a distinct difference between the sound that comes out of the actual unit above the cab, as it runs at a much lower noise level than the diesel engine. Once you have established that the fridge unit is operating on electricity, you can now manipulate the temperature settings. As said earlier, normally the last temperature settings will display, and if that is not what you require, you will have to manipulate the up or down arrows to get to the correct temperature which is required. In this particular case, we need to set the fridge at -5 degrees, which means from -25 to -5 we will use the up arrow, the up pointing arrow, to get to -5 degrees. Once we reach -5 degrees, we will have to select it. In other words, you'll have to enter it on the equal sign on the display. That basically locks the temperature which you have selected. The next section of the course will concentrate on switching the fridge unit off and unplugging the cable and plug from the vehicle and storing it correctly. Switch off the fridge unit, move the power switch into the off position. The display on the control unit will immediately go blank and the electrical motor will stop running. The driver may now disembark from the cab and move towards the power point to switch off the electrical supply at the power point switch. Once the switch has been put into the off position, it is now safe to remove the plug from the vehicle, coil up the lead and store it in its holder. If the temperature on the vehicle still needs to be maintained after the electrical power supply has been disconnected, restart the fridge unit by pushing the on button on the display, select the diesel engine and ensure that the correct temperature setting is maintained to keep the temperature within the required limits.